do that. We enjoyed it. Traveled around the area. Didn't travel a lot to downtown Portland. Um, but as we were looking at places, we're trying to get somewhere convenient to the grandkids, and so they were in Portland, and it just so happens a house opened up in an area of Portland, which is a fairly suburban kind of neighborhood. So we ended up with a house here in North Deering section of Portland, which is where District 112 is. It's North Deering and Falmouth.
Yeah. Nice. And so you moved here, and then you got to understand how. So how did you get involved in the party? Because I don't 100% remember that.
I moved here literally like a couple of weeks before the election, the 2022 election. So I changed my voting over to registered to vote there. Changed my registration over to Portland, and voted in that election. Then after the Republican lost in that election, Tammy. I said, well, okay, I'll get with the see what sort of local groups there are, because I wanted to get involved. Since I'm retired, I felt like I should get involved in politics, and so I looked at the website, which was pretty, I would say, disappointing. It was in pretty bad condition. I mean, it was the stories were stale on it, and it was kind of an older style site. It's since been redone, so today's website is actually pretty good.
And that's the Portland Republican website that you're talking about?
Cumberland site's been redone. Cumberland site's
okay, Cumberland County, yeah.
Redone. The Portland, they have a link to go to the Portland site, which is still stuck in a time, on a time warp.
Okay. From 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
but at least Cumberland County Republican Committee's website, ccrcme.com, is it's been modernized, which
it's been modernized. Luckily, we had there was a person moved up here from New York, Brittany, who was she had experience with websites, and she redid their website and did a great job. So I got with I got a hold of Ryan McMahon. He's the Portland chairperson, and found out when their meetings were. I went to a meeting, and then the first meeting was a I should say there was like 6 people. I want to say 6 people. 6 people there. They were all depressed over the results of the 2022 election.
Yeah,
6 people were there, and so I started asking all these questions like, okay, well, what are you guys doing next? Are you what's the next? What plans do you have? I started asking all these different questions, and they were kind of like, well, who's this guy asking all these questions? And one of them said to me, well, why don't you run? And I thought he was being smart with me, but it turns out he was actually serious, because I guess they'd had trouble finding candidates over the last 5 or 6 years to run for office. So I about a month after I heard that, about a month later, Ryan said to me, we're serious. If you want to run, we'll help you out, and I'll vote for you. And I said, well, all right, let me think about it. So in February of this year, I think I decided at the caucus. I went to the caucus here in Portland, and in February, there was a person there that ran once before, and they said they thought it was a a good experience when they ran. This was like maybe 10 years ago or so. And I said, well, okay, that guy ran. He seemed like he thought it was a decent experience. So okay, I guess I'll do it. So then, you know, Ryan and McMahon, Steve Sharp helped me out. Steve helped with treasurer. He became the treasurer, and he took care of all the setting up the accounts and filing the paperwork and things like that. And that's how I got going.
Well, nice. But so it like in such a liberal city. I mean, people are like asking me. I live in Westbrook, right? Westbrook's a little bit more. One of the more liberal cities, but in the greater Portland area, it's actually like maybe a little bit more moderate, but it's still quite liberal. And everybody tells me I have no chance of winning, and I've lost twice. So 32 and 35%. I'm growing, but like it's you know, in such a blue area, it's hard to win. But like you ran in an even more challenging environment, where, you know, I went out with a couple of people and we were you put up Trump signs in Portland, and you just get the middle finger like quickly, people yelling at you, screaming at their steering wheels. We were actually doing a wave where we were just standing on the bridge and holding up Trump signs. And one of the drivers like basically invited a candidate who ran in Cumberland to walk out in front of his car so he could hit them. So yeah, Portland is challenging. And so like how like, I guess it sounds like it wasn't that hard for them to convince you to run, but like it seems like that should have been. But you're just like, you believe in the movement, and you're like, sure, somebody said it was a good experience, so I'll do it. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it was, you know, I was a little worried about. Yeah, well, first of all, Sheriff told me that you know, the odds were stacked against me. You know, so he gave me the stats. He's very good with data and stats. So he really is. He gave me the information, and so he said, "Yeah, you probably won't win, you know, but you know." I said, "Well, if I'm going to run, I got to at least try and win it. I mean, I can't run with the mindset that I'm going to lose. I'm going to try. I'm going to go out there and try and convince people, many as I decided I'd have to do that person to person, because I didn't have any." You know, radio advertisements or things like that going on, or media. I was a clean elections candidate, which means I didn't have to run with my own money. I could go get $5 donations called QCs, qualifying contributions. And if I got enough of those, then the state would match funds into my campaign. I could print up some materials. So I started out with I just printed off on my home computer a little bio. I kind of copied the format of the state legislature guys.
Yeah.
So I did a little bio of myself. You know, I was born. You know, where I was born. You know, a couple paragraphs, and I printed them off, and I would just go around and knock on doors and hand them out to people, and tell them who I was, and I hand them out to people. This is in like February, March, April timeframe. And then I would try and get the contributions. I needed like 60 QCs to qualify for the House. I needed a bunch of petition signatures also, which I got separately. It's tougher to get the contributions than the signatures. That's pretty easy.
It is. It's mind bending going door to door and asking Republicans who definitely want Republicans in office to give $5, which is, I mean, like most people who live in a building can spare $5. I understand that times are tight, but they're not really that tight. I mean, you know, drink 2 less sodas or 1 less coffee from Starbucks, and boom, there's your $5. And so it was so bizarre to see how many people like as you said, they're very willing to give, you know, to sign their name, and they're really thankful that you're running, but you're asking me for money. It's like, I need $5. Like but still people like the you know, it's just our culture, right? People asking for money. Does that get people riled up right quick? But you were able to you know, you get the contributions and get the funding from essentially from the state to be able to run your campaign. So what was it like? So going door to door, because I'm assuming you didn't just go to Republican doors, you went to all doors.
Well,
Can you tell us a couple of fun stories from that happened as you went door to door?
Yeah. Well, I had well to start out, I had a spreadsheet from Sharf prepared a spreadsheet for me, and being an engineer, I was used to working with spreadsheets. So I had all the voters that were registered, parties, addresses, the whole thing. So I really, the first phase of my campaign, I went to all the Republican places only, not and seeking the $5 and the signatures I needed. So once I got them, then I expanded that to include independents. So then I started knocking on doors of Republicans and independents, still avoiding the hardcore Democrats. And then later on in the campaign, I just went down the street. So anybody that didn't have a Kamala sign in their yard, I knocked on their door, pretty much, and talked to them. But yeah, but there was some interesting. I had one person that they had 3 registered Republicans in the property at the house, and there was 1 Democrat. So as I'm going up the driveway, the 1 Democrat that lived there happened to be the one come out of her front door and started yelling at me to kind of get the F off my property. Because I told her I wanted to see, I had the names of the Republicans, and I said, well, I'm here to see these other people, and she said, well, they're not home. What's this all about? And then she yelled at me to get the F off my property, and she sort of was screaming at me as I was walking down the street. So that was one experience. Other folks, I ran into a lot of Republicans early on that were very they just didn't like Trump, so they would say, they would ask me if I was going to vote for Trump. It was almost like I said, well, I decided that the best way to answer that question is just tell them the truth, right? So I just said, yes, I'm going to vote for Trump. And so they either reacted badly or they were happy that I was voting for Trump. A few people I talked to see why they didn't. I tried to say, hey, look at the bigger picture. It's not just about Trump the person, but look at the country and policies and things like that. And so I tried talking that with Republicans that I ran into, and it was sort of mixed success on that. Other folks, I talked to a lady in Falmouth. I think she could have been a Democrat, might have been independent, but it was another funny one. She asked me if I had a web page, and I said no. I had a Facebook page, which they had just set up, but I hadn't loaded any content on it at the time. I said, well, I don't have I really don't have a social media page, but I have a Facebook page. I said I don't have a Twitter page, and as soon as I said Twitter, the person started yelling about Elon Musk being a liar and spreads lies and all this kind of stuff. and she started really loudly yelling. I mean, this was during the time in remember Springfield, they had the cats and the dogs.
Oh gosh.
So she started screaming about people don't eat cats and dogs. He's a liar. He's spreading lies and all this kind of stuff. And I just kind of said, oh, well, I moved on to the next house. And as I'm walking down the street to the next driveway, she drives by in her car and she rolls the window down and she screams, they don't eat cats. They don't eat dogs. Elon Musk is a liar. She just screamed all the way down the road till she got out of this voice. So that's another, great experience I had.
Yeah, I mean, people really get triggered with in those areas, especially with Trump, but also because Elon's now supporting Trump. I mean, it's like they just lose the ability to reason and just freak out. And clearly they're just, unfortunately indoctrinated by the mainstream media, and they believe that narrative. And it's sad, but so despite those types of experiences, you kept going door to door.
Yeah, I kept going door to door. Sometimes I skipped a few doors because I couldn't calm myself down enough to talk to somebody. I need a few minutes. So sometimes I just go to the next house and I just stick the thing in it's called palm card just in the door. I kept going, and I ran into a lot of as I got into the phase where I started talking to more Democrats. I would talk to them, and a lot of them were conservative, had shared views, with what with Republicans, but they just voted always Democrat out of habit, or they just believed in the media orange man bad thing, and they didn't want to vote for I heard all the typical hoaxes that got debunked. I heard a bunch of them. Somebody said, "Oh, Trump drinks bleach." He said, "Why would you?" And I told them I work for Trump, right? And I told them I would vote for Trump. They said, "Oh, Trump he's told everybody to drink bleach, or Trump makes fun of handicapped people, or Trump's misogynist." People repeated a lot of mainstream media has been bombarding them for years with all these stories. It's had an effect on a lot of people, and so I don't necessarily argue with. I feel a little bad for them because they've soaked up so much of that information they can't see a different reality.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult because I think there are a lot of people in our movement that just want to get angry at them. But I think I agree with you. The reality is, do they are they complicit in their own indoctrination? Yes, they are at fault. Absolutely. But their primary fault, I think, lies with buying into this idea that can't happen in America. I remember for myself when there were all these conspiracy theories floating around 9/11, all these years ago, that I just rolled my eyes and I just thought people were stupid. And I was like, you've lost your mind. Because in my mind, that the government hiding significant amounts of information or orchestrating something like that couldn't happen. This is America. That doesn't happen here. And so I think that whether they fall into that category exactly or not, they believe in the institutions of this country, which used to be trustworthy. If you look back at, because the craziness in COVID, there was somebody told me about the swine flu of 1983 or something like that. There was a different swine flu back in the 1980s where the CDC was recommending and got millions of people vaccinated, and even claimed that professional athletes and stuff like that were endorsing it and they'd been vaccinated for a virus that basically impacted almost no one, and people had all these vaccine injuries. And if you find the video of it, the journalist, the person who's asking the question, is actually doing real journalism and is really taking this person who's the former director of the CDC and asking these questions. And the guy's like, "Oh, well, we didn't know at that point. I was not aware." And he's like, "I have a letter that you signed that you actually knew this." And he's like, so they were actually doing, historically, a lot of our institutions were doing their job. They've just slowly been infiltrated over time. And, before we go ahead and judge, a lot of us were asleep. I was asleep at the wheel, so to speak, leading up until 2020, right? I'll admit that I was not paying nearly as much attention. In fact, I would say that I didn't even know how the state government worked. I didn't realize that the state government was a mirror of the federal government. And so there are a lot of people out there that just are not aware of how things go on. And I'm not making excuses as much as I am explaining reality. Is that when you're a young family, for instance, or a young person, and you've got so much going on, you're just trying to survive in life. For a lot of these people, especially if you're a young family, though, and you have kids and they've got all these sporting events. I was talking to somebody who ran in Southern Maine for a Senate seat, and she was talking about how there are a lot of people that are conservative that would like to get involved, but all the meetings happen at times where their kids have games, or they have to have dinner and they have to get their kids to bed and all these things. And it makes it really challenging for people who are in those spaces to be able to do the deep dive. You're retired. At the time, I was single, you know, and I had all this free time to be able to, and still don't have kids, to be able to do a ton of research, which the average person didn't have. And there was nothing coming from the mainstream media that was speaking the truth. And at the time, you know, even Twitter, there was no, where did free speech actually exist? Because the social media companies were in conjunction with the media. So, like, again, I don't want to like let them off the hook, because that's not what I believe. They've made faults, but the truth is that they've had the wool pulled over their eyes, and it's frustrating that they can't see the truth. But I also feel some compassion for them, and that's why I'm advocating for, you know, continuing to engage with these people and try and speak truth to them, and hope over time they see it and are awakened. And I just want to thank you, because, like, you know, running in a district like you did, which my understanding is it's the most conservative portion of Portland, but it's still in Portland. And I think you got like what, 26 or 28%?
28.5% of the vote. So I got like 400 more votes than there are registered Republicans. So I picked up some independents. Which was I was outside the polling station on voting day. A lot of people had favorable things to say to me. The mayor was voting. He said he thought I ran a good campaign, which was pretty good from, you know, he's a politician. I'm new at politics.
Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty good. But you're right, you know, talking to, you know, I tried to make it a goal to talk to as many people as I could. So I literally was out every day for a couple hours every day, walking around, talking to folks. I made up I had like a little three-ring binder. I'll just show you quickly, which had some slides in it, you know, I made of, you know, kind of, you know, I put a little, you know, a news story that was factual, you know, versus the mainstream news type of stuff.
Yep.
You know, a lot of main wire stories I synopsized into a slide, and I had, you know, education and the border and other major issues sections, and I would try and show them a slide to at least try and back up with some facts, you know, what I was saying to them when we were having our dialogue. And that seemed pretty helpful, because a lot of people were you'd be amazed at how many people don't even know they've never heard of the main wire, even though we've heard of it.
Even conservatives, like I talk to people who are Republicans, and they're like, the what? So yeah, the main wire has done a great job, especially since Steve Robinson took it over about 2 years ago. Yeah, I think they've done a fantastic job and are continuing to grow. But yeah, still a lot of people don't know who they are. I mean, they're in social media, they're in all the right places, Twitter, Facebook. Facebook is challenging because Facebook keeps removing their content, which is one of the best ways to connect with people, older people in particular, is Facebook, outside of doors. But I think, you know, but anyway, yeah, that's a really quality tactic. And I appreciate, again, I just want to say that I appreciate you taking the time and doing that. I know you're retired and you're bored and all, but spending your days going and getting yelled at is it's not
because I'm retired doesn't mean I have nothing to do.
But I think it's one of those things of people assume if you're retired or if you're a single male that you just have ultimate free time and can do whatever you want whenever you want. And so I appreciate that's it's not actually true, right?
No, there's a pretty big list of things to do. Always is. But I'd say it was overall very good experience. People were very appreciative I was running. As I thought about, early on when I was first considering running, I was thinking about the fact that you'd have an election during a presidential election year, and if I didn't run, you would not have a choice, really. Basically, you'd have just a Democrat candidate there, and how that, and I just couldn't live with the fact that we'd have just a Democrat candidate. So that was a big factor in my decision.
Yeah, no, and I think that's part of. So when we talk about this, so there's this group, and I assume at least now or maybe in the future, some of them will be watching. It's called Pine Tree Patriots on X. If you're not part of that group and you are a patriot here in the state of Maine and you want to see Maine return to its conservative roots and take back this state and away from the insane left, I recommend that you go ahead and follow them. But they're trying to figure out how to. It's kind of like a grassroots organization that's trying to do what it can to help, both in terms of sharing information, Truth Slinger and the Truth Slinger News Network and what we're doing, the Enquirer, Muddy Waters, and the Maine Wire, all organizations, and there are other people involved as well, trying to get information out to the people about what's actually going on in our state. But they're also trying to mobilize and help candidates and help get people to run for office. And so one of the things that they noted recently is just like how many open seats there were for people running. And also there was a conversation around this idea of winnable seats and non-winnable seats. And there's a part of people, there's a number of people who want to believe that every seat is winnable, and that we shouldn't put those labels on it. But personally, I don't know how you feel having run in an unwinnable seat, and I've also run twice now in an unwinnable seat. But I think that maybe in the long term, if I can build some more relationships within Westbrook, I've got a chance. But is there any hope of having a conservative win, or is there's some other purpose that you've kind of alluded to, I think already, in having somebody run in these districts?
Well, I think I would say this area was considered unwinnable, and so I got no support, from the up north, the party in general. It was pretty much an individual effort. It's grassroots, as you said, and it's to get the kind of numbers we need to win. It would take a lot of Democrats would have to vote for the Republican in order to win, just because of the population being the way it is. Now, that being said, there are a lot of Democrats that are, they're kind of like Kennedy, where the party they joined isn't the party of today. And their values align a lot with Republican values. So I think there's a chance to grow the kind of conservative side of things, to grow it. Whether it can grow enough to overcome the Democrat numbers is the question mark, but I think it can grow. And again, they keep it. The more information they get, by talking to other sources other than just absorbing what they hear from the news sources, the mainstream news sources, the more they talk to other folks, and the more they understand that we do have kind of shared values. We care about our kids and our grandkids. We care about their future. The more it can get towards being Republican, but I don't know that it's gonna get there soon. So my focus is more at the moment is really trying to get more of those people with the shared values that are Democrats or independents to be voting Republican next time around, because presumably things will get better. With Trump, the economy should get better. They should see some positive changes, and they'll start to look at the alternative to the one they've been voting for the last 10 or 15 years. They'll start to look for some options going forward, which the Republicans have some great options.
Hello.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you're talking about too is this long game, right? One of the problems with the conservative movement, in my opinion, and I've asked this to Joel Stetkis directly. Had a conversation with Joel today, as a side note. But I've asked him directly in the past, what is the long-term vision, right? And at the time, I think there's more that's developing. But this is right after he became chair. He's like, well, the long-term vision is to win the House in 2024. And I was like, that's not a long-term vision. That's a short-term vision. What's the long-term? And at the time, he didn't have one, right? And this is the problem of the conservative movement, is that like we play the short game. It's like, okay, what races can we win this year? And then the races off on the unwinnable, not because I disagree that these races are unwinnable, but because like if we're going to win our state back, it's going to take time, and it's going to take people like you and people like me and people like others around the state who have put themselves out there and run multiple times in some cases in races where they were told were unwinnable, and they even lost once and knew what they were up against. But they've grown the movement over time. So have we won? No, but I gained 3%. And actually, I did a lot less going door to door, and I utilized some additional tactics such as social media, and text campaigns, and did very little aside from that. But I built a base, and I built more connections within the community. And over time, there is hope, but we have to be constantly there every single cycle, going and having conversation with people, building those relationships, communicating our views and values. And are some people crazy and are maybe not going to be people who we can impact? Sure, but we can impact some people, and I think that's what I think we should be doing. So again, so appreciate what you're doing, and I hope it sounds like there's at least some optimism and some thought about potentially running again, but I won't make you commit to that today. But we need that. Yeah. I think like one of the questions sometimes is Portland a lost cause? Should we just give up on it? I've heard some people in the conservative movement say we should just leave them to their devices. But, the reality is that's abandoning a significant portion of the voting block that impacts not just, and this is one of the things that we talk about, right? Like your work and what you're doing most likely did not just impact your race. Most likely through your conversation, some people chose not just to vote for you, but to vote for conservatives up ticket as well. Right. Yeah. Well, and that's, and that's one of the biggest values of getting people to run in some of these quote unquote unwinnable districts, is because conservatives know, oh, I have a choice. I can actually go in Portland, Maine, and vote for somebody who's got an R next to their name. Yeah. Like there are conservatives that will show up to vote that might not otherwise show up to vote because they know that. And so I think there's huge value that way, building a coalition, building the movement over time, and connecting with this. Like the fact that you got 400 more votes than registered Republicans is incredible in Portland. Like that's incredible. And so because we know that not all the Republicans actually showed up to vote, which means, you probably got more than 400 votes from people who are not Republicans. And in Portland, I think that's Portland and Falmouth, which also is very blue, is very significant. So, so it's not pointless. It does, one of the reasons we need people to run in those races is it gives people a choice, gets them to vote, helps up ticket. And this is kind of what we need. We don't need to take back Cumberland County, for instance. We don't need to have more Republican representatives in Cumberland County in order to win the state. We just need some growth. We need to raise the temperature about 5%. If we can get 5% or so more people voting Republican, we can win the state. By doing that, and that, I'm talking in Cumberland County, and it comes with, but it's not going to happen if we don't have people going door to door. So, Anyway, so let me just see if there's any other of my questions I had, but yeah, so fun stuff, door to door in Portland. I had a hard enough time in Westbrook, and you run into some people, and it's just again, you got a variety of people who just assume, oh, you look like a nice person, you must be a Democrat, and then when they find out you're a Republican, goes south quickly. And you run into so many people that are just so incredibly ignorant. One of our biggest challenges, I think, to winning back the legislature is people like myself from 4 years ago that don't even understand how politics work, don't even understand how our government works, and don't realize how, all these people in Portland who are so worried about what Trump's going to do. Like the reality is, Janet Mills and the House and Senate Democrats here in the state of Maine have a much more significant impact on your life. But the mainstream media in particular has got us all funneled into just paying attention to what's going on in Washington. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Trump winning was huge, but what's happening locally matters, and people are not going to even know about it if we're not going around door to door, and finding other ways to get ourselves out there, such as social media. But yeah, so what are your thoughts about the future in Portland?
Well, well, it's. I mean, if you look at Portland's the trajectory of Portland, it's not going in the right direction. You know, a lot of spending. They're doing a lot of spending. You got a lot of issues with I don't. Well, I would say I don't know what they call them, new Americans or immigrants. You get, but people that are reliant on social services, that there's just not enough of services to provide, and so it's a drain on the government, and the government goes back, has to ask for more taxes from the taxpayers. So there's a problem there, in that you know, even though I'm in a fairly suburban area of Portland, tax-wise it gets impacted by what happens in the city of Portland, and that's why you know, we need to keep talking about some of the other solutions that might be out there that could be good solutions, but because they happen to be Republican solutions, they're totally dismissed by the Democrats that are currently in Portland. So going forward, I think we got to kind of push some new ideas into the echo chamber that they have. We have to start pushing. We have to push in some ideas which maybe they don't you know, they don't like from a virtual signaling point of view, but it's practical. You know, we want some practical ideas that are going to result in policies that are, you know, common sense policies on energy, and you know, help with fuel costs and cost of living and those taxes, those type of things. I think if we got to have conservatives / Republicans in the conversation to get there, and so that's why we need to stay engaged and need to keep talking about it, because as things get worse and worse, we want to have an alternative that's out there that can be brought in to help get things back better.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think you know, one of the things that I think is true is that the more we speak the truth into these spaces and people listen, and even if they don't agree with us, and then we speak the truth in such a way, like Trump. I know that this will upset all the Democrats, but the truth is, in 2020, Trump did something I don't think any other president has ever done in U.S. history. Is he ran 2 campaigns. He ran his own campaign, and he also ran Joe Biden's campaign. What I mean by that is he told us more about what Joe Biden was going to do, and he was accurate. He told us, he's like, this is what Joe Biden's going to do. He's not telling you, so I'm going to tell you. And Joe Biden went and did what Donald Trump said Joe Biden was going to do. And I think that partly because of that, people heard that, and then as Biden did exactly what Trump said he was going to do, people are like, maybe this is not the way. You know, and so I think the more that we're out there doing that, not just saying, here's our alternative and here's why we're against this, because it's not going to work. And what it's going to do is cause this. And then when we're right, people are going to see that, and hopefully they'll awaken if we continue the conversation, continue with that. So one of the last questions I think I'll ask you is, like, what would you say to somebody who's watching and is like, I don't really want to run for office. I think it's too much work. I think it's too difficult. I don't think it's worth it. Or I want to, like, what's your advice for somebody who's just like asking that question? Should I run for office? What would you say to that?
Well, I would say, I mean, you should run for office if you can. You know, I like I said, I'm new to politics, so I'm kind of learning as I go. But what I've seen of the legislature, I mean, those people don't have any skill sets, that experience sets that make them super candidates. Ordinary people can do as good of a job or even a better job in many cases, and so I think they need people. They need people that represent the people and want to do kind of common sense, practical things. That's what we need in the legislature. We don't need career, politicians that are trying to get a notch on their political resume. We want some people probably that are gonna get in there and work and get things done. And I had a career where I was a project leader, what they call project leader or team leader, and I had cross-functional teams that we had a product, we had to develop it in like 2 or 3 years. We had a budget, we had to track our budget, we had to do certain tests, pass certain certifications, and get the product ready. And we had all types of people on these teams. Democrats, Republicans. I don't know what their political affiliation was. They all had to work together to produce a system, by the designated time. So in a way, anybody can really contribute to getting things done in the legislature. It's just a question of working with other people and kind of focusing on getting things moving. So I would encourage if people can run it. I encourage people younger than myself. I'm kind of an old white guy, which is not a great political person to have running.
It doesn't sell. Yeah, it doesn't sell well in Portland.
Yes. So if you're younger, younger, more energetic, diverse, whatever, you can bring some great attributes to the table, and I encourage you to run for office.
Yeah, and I would just echo that, and I would just say that even if it's for a race that maybe we can't win, like being involved in the political process is a learning experience that very few people have come away saying that was not worth my time. And even if you don't win, you make an impact and you learn and you grow. And it was interesting. My first time I ran, like I was challenged so much, and I had to step out and do things that I didn't want to do, that when I was done running and I was back to just working my normal job, I was finding that, wow, this job is so much easier because I, picked up some additional skills and I think it's a valuable experience, even if you don't win. But yeah, to your point, I think it's very valid. Like, I think sometimes I as I was running, and even as I'm doing this podcast, right. And I'm like, well, I don't know everything about everything. And so I'm going to say some things that are wrong and people are going to be upset. And it's like, yeah, that's probably true. But the reality is, like, most of the people who are in political office, running for political office, they don't know any better. In fact, they probably know less. And especially if they're a Democrat at this point, which sadly, I don't think all Democrat voters, but like it seems like 99% of Democrat legislators at just about every level are sheep that just do whatever the party tells them to do. Literally, my opponent was effectively saying, I'm a Democrat, I'm proudly a Democrat, and I do what the Democrats do. Yeah. And that's what we have on the other side. So somebody who's clearly not thinking these things through, they're getting their talking points and their advice from the party, and they're just doing what the party says. And you're most likely, if you're a thinking human being and you can try to solve some problems, you're going to do a better job than that. So I'd encourage anybody to consider, running for office. And I think one of the things I'm hearing from you, Steve, and I agree with this, and I'm really appreciative for Ryan and Stephen Scharf for the help that they were in helping us both run our campaigns, but just realizing that we need to do more for our candidates, even in, we need to be strategic. We need to try to win the quote unquote winnable races. I still think that makes sense, but we still need to dedicate some resources and some training and some additional help for people who are running some of these other races. And I think we have to stop waiting for the Republican Party at large out of Augusta to do that and start doing it more and more at a grassroots level. But we need people. So if you're out there and you're like, I care, please reach out, get involved. Go to ccrcme.com, look for different events to go to, show up to a social, meet us, follow me on Twitter at Muddy Waters Maine, and shoot me a message and say, I want to get involved. I don't know what to do. And we can help you get plugged in. If you're in Cumberland County, that's where I'm focused, but I can probably get you connected to people all across the state. So I just encourage everybody to get involved. And any parting words, Steve?
Well, that's well. I think you just said it. Like I think the first meeting I went to was a social. It was like a happy hour meeting at Portland Pie in Falmouth, and that was I think the first meeting I went to, and it was very, it was very interesting. It was like people there were almost refreshed that they could speak their mind because they were so concerned about what they said in their work at their job or at home, or they were afraid to talk about Republican politics at all. So people were pretty energetic, and there was a great mix of ages, older people, younger people, and that's a great way to get involved. Is go to the CCMC website and look for events, happy hour. The other thing is go to a meeting. Track down your town. There's links at the CCMC site to the various
CCRCME.com. No worries.
Yeah, there's links to various towns, and go to a town meeting. Get involved that way. There's a lot of like I said, I knew nothing about politics. This whole process, I've met a lot of people I wouldn't normally meet. I was an engineer, so I was dealing a lot with technical people, and now I'm talking to more liberals and independents, and some are just very glad to have somebody knock on their door and talk to them because they don't see they haven't seen my opponent hasn't been around to their door in like years. So they're very happy I even walked by. Some said they vote for me just because I came by their house and talked to them. So, which is kind of funny. Other people say, "Hey, you're a Republican, I'll vote for you." I said, "Okay, that's a layup. I'll take it." That's good. Other folks are like, "Well, I'm never going to vote for a Republican." That's okay too. I'll move on to the next house. But I try not to get too personal or angry or emotional with folks. I just try and sometimes they just got to vent when they talk to you, but it's because they're pent up. They have no outlet. So that's why again going to the social hour is good. Getting involved is good.
Yeah. So the name of the game, get involved. We need your help. We don't have enough people. That's the biggest struggle that we have. One of the biggest struggles that we have in Cumberland County, these people, is like if we had 10 people, like that sounds like a crazy number, but if we had 10 people that were like, when you need help, we'll show up, that would be a game changer in being able to get information out to voters and help. So we need the help, and I think we can actually make a real difference if people get involved.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think it would be great to have enough people that you could have committees that work on specific topics of concern. Work up policies on, say, the homeless or taxes or whatever. It'd be nice.
Education. Yep.
Education. So it'd be nice to have little groups. Kind of go off and kind of research it, report back on how what they find out, what kind of policies are being used around the country, what are working, what are not, what do we think would work here. It'd be great to have that kind of organization, but we need people. We need people to get involved.
Yep. So please get involved. So thank you all for coming. Thanks, Steve, again for being on the show. Really appreciated hearing your story about running as a Republican in Portland. Just thanks for being on the podcast, and for everybody watching. We'll be back here on Thursday at 2 p.m. I have to keep remembering the time. For me, it's 10 p.m. because I'm still in Kenya, having a great time with my wife. I always forget right there. She's there. Thank everybody for listening, and let's keep this moving, build this momentum, and let's take our state back. Okay. We're out.